I just got a bubble tea. What do you mean I'm restricting? For my body's maintenance, it was still restrictive. And I'll bring back my recovery mantra, unconditional freedom to eat. Hey guys, welcome to the 9th episode of our first series on eating disorders. In my last episode, which feels like ages ago, I spoke to you about what recovery really means to me, and I shared some of my remaining symptoms that I have to this day, and we talked about how I keep well. Today, I'll be telling you about a recent challenge that I had where I wasn't allowed to exercise for about 7 weeks unexpectedly, and how this led to what I would call a mini relapse. Before we get into this conversation, as we always do, just a super quick housekeeping. This is not a professional medical advice. So if you need professional medical help, please seek support in your local area. Now, without further ado, let's get right into today's conversation. Okay, let's start with an update from the last episode to get into today's topic. When I posted the last episode a few months ago, I was in a really good state with my eating mentally and physically. I was also challenging myself to train for a half marathon to see if I can do this without focusing on calorie burn. I wanted to prove to myself that I can train hard for a bigger purpose, like raising money for mental health charities. And I managed to train up to running 12K, and I was eating really well, etc. And for a couch potato and for somebody who comes from a restrictive eating background, this was quite a big achievement, and I was really happy about it. On a Wednesday afternoon, I randomly had a letter from a hospital calling me in for an in-depth health examination and potentially a minor health procedure. And this wasn't related to my disordered eating or eating in any way, by the way. So I go in for my health appointment, and the doctor says, I do need this minor health procedure. We could get it done right now if you wanted to. You would know if you're in the UK, but I'm based in the UK at the moment, where our national healthcare system is so overstretched, and I did not want to cause another faff for coming in for another appointment. So I just said yes under pressure, and I just had the procedure done. And already behind my procedure, I didn't have enough time, or I hadn't made the effort to prepare myself for this because I wasn't really expecting it. And so after this procedure, the doctor said to me that I wasn't allowed to do my usual exercises for about 3 to 4 weeks, except casual walking. I was actually having a mini heart sink. I was thinking to myself, I had to train so much for my half marathon. This is so annoying. But also, I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to work out and I might put on some weight. And this thought was so silent, quick, and quiet, so subconscious that I really didn't admit this properly at the time. And whilst I was waiting for this healing period of 3 to 4 weeks to be over, I tried to walk, do my casual walking almost every day over lunchtime. And reflecting back onto this, I think I found myself almost subconsciously annoyed / impatient / overwhelmed about having to go for a walk. Why was I feeling annoyed about going for a walk? To be honest with you, I was annoyed because I wasn't able to take part in a more intensive calorie burning exercise that would be more effective, connotation mark, in my brain. I was feeling impatient because I somehow wanted to get the same amount of calorie burn effect, but to get that from walking, I knew I had to walk for much longer. So I was feeling impatient, and I felt overwhelmed as well because I didn't want to walk that long, and I didn't want to feel like this. And I was silently taking punishments as well for not walking as much as the equivalent of a usual HIIT workout or my half marathon training. This little reflection exercise implies two really important things for me, which has been my usual suspects in my background, which is number one, calorie burning was likely a significant source of motivation behind my exercising habits so far, although I never admitted at the time. And second, fear of weight gain had made its way back. Even after my hard-earned recovery experience that I shared with you in episode 6, I think it was, I wasn't aware of any of these reflections at the time. But overall, at the time, I somehow still found this first 3 to 4 weeks of recovery, tolerable. It was okay. It was kind of short enough to just be okay without not dealing with the issues properly at the time. And it was okay to not take part in intensive exercises during this period, and I could still get by without flagging some of these early warning signs properly. So I'm going to actually bring in an interesting analogy here that I heard from someone called Walter. He's amazing. He's a board advisor and head of mindfulness at a company called Palter. He said to me, "How are you right now from 1 to 10?" And he said, if you can care for yourself to stay at an 8 as a baseline, when random shit happens in our lives, which it does, when it just throws you something completely random, like my random notice saying you cannot exercise for 3 to 4 weeks, you take a hit, right? From an 8 down to maybe a 4. But 4 is still okay. You can take yourself up more easily. But if I'm at a 5 as a baseline, if I maintain my well-being as a 5, when this life blow happens, it just takes me down to a 1. It's like KO. It's completely destroying me. So when I spoke to Walter, he goes on to talk more about how it's so important to maintain our well-being at a higher standard so that we can be more resilient to adverse events that we cannot control sometimes. So using Walter's analogy in my current situation that I just explained, I think I was kind of a 6 before as a baseline, and this 3 to 4 week exercise ban, quotation mark, took me down to probably like a 4. So it's like, okay, this is okay, it's pretty tough, but let me just get back on track. But my second recent blow on my mental health and my disordered eating recovery was waiting for me just around the corner, actually, because at week 3, my healing process seemed pretty weird. And I had this weird gut feeling that, I don't think something is right. Like, I feel like there might be something going wrong. And at week 4, my healing started to go definitely quite wrong because I ended up in A&E on that Saturday, and I was held in hospital until Sunday evening, where then they were allowed to just discharge me. And the nurse said, "Miss Lee, the healing should be all fine now, fingers crossed. Please don't exercise for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Let's say 4 weeks just to be sure." Yeah. So I was sat there and just said, "Really? 4 weeks? Yeah. Maybe light jogging would be okay?" "No, Miss Lee, I wouldn't." "Okay, so like nothing?" "No, Miss Lee, you can walk." So I was left with an extended 4-week ban on my exercising. Woo! This was the moment of almost a silent mental breakdown. But at the time, I was completely rinsed out, to be honest, from being in A&E. I was so tired and I just wanted to be home, and I was so grateful to just be sat at home. So then over the next additional 3 to 4 weeks, where I did heal, by the way, thank God, this is really when things started to go down to a 2 It really started grinding down on me. But the way how that started going down was really cheeky. It was more cheeky than ever before. And I'm going to tell you more about how this downhill slope and chipping away at my mental health happened, or at least how I think it happened, until I ended up feeling like I'm in the middle of a relapse. These things are what started happening to me. I would get up just before 7 a.m. and start the day with my coffee, and I'd pretty much wait until I'm really hungry to have breakfast because I thought, that's a good thing since I got my hunger cues back after my last recovery round, which I again talk about in episode 6. But I also work quite a bit. I'm quite busy, so in the morning I often don't have enough time to sometimes have breakfast until it's 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. until I have a bit of a break. And this kept kind of happening, and I completely did not see this as a restriction. I just told myself, I am busy. I was waiting for my hunger cues. This is not restrictive eating. And then I would sometimes go to a coffee shop in the late morning to work, and I'd have a pain au chocolat at 11, and I'd have that as breakfast. So I would delay my breakfast, and then I would have a croissant or a pastry at late morning, which I also didn't see as a restriction. I was thinking that I was treating myself. I was doing the right thing. I was having a pastry, and I never used to have pastries when I was restrictive dieting. And then I started to sometimes skip breakfast because, it's 11 a.m., it's lunch soon, so maybe it's okay to skip breakfast. And then I think it happened 2 to 3 times, but I basically skipped lunch. And instead, I got, again, a pastry, or I would get a bubble tea. I love bubble tea. And again, I didn't see this as a restriction. I just got a bubble tea. What do you mean I'm restricting? And then after a bubble tea, I would tell myself that, Min, I think you're full enough. You don't really need to have lunch right now. And you have meetings. Come on, you need to go to meetings. You don't need lunch. Let's go, go, go. And these things happened over the 3 to 4 weeks. And in hindsight, and only in hindsight, I stress this because at the time I was 100% not aware of this. I might have been, well, I should have been because that was myself, but I didn't have the ability to pick this out at the time. It all managed to go through my disordered eating thought police radar and seep into my reality. So in hindsight, again, I was 100% nervous about gaining weight. Although I didn't restrict my food groups or intake in the same way that I did in my previous restrictive eating experience, for my body's maintenance, it was still restrictive. Restrictive eating does not, to me, mean I'm only eating cucumber or I'm only eating this diet or that diet. Even if I'm having a pain au chocolat, then as a result, if I'm skipping breakfast, then as a result, I'm swapping something out, that was restrictive eating for me because I still didn't have enough food in my system. And I also had this weirdly, silently, and powerfully satisfying feeling that, I didn't seem to be gaining the weight that I was afraid of during this extended period of exercise ban. And actually, I seemed to be losing a bit of weight. And it triggered this huge but quiet satisfaction, like a dopamine release, like a taste of my previous bad habits around restrictive eating. And I know this is a massive red flag too already. And you guys might think, Min, you've been through this multiple times. How did you not see this straight away as a red flag, as a sign of potential relapse? How did you not see that? Guys, I actually do not know how I managed to keep on convincing myself that I was looking after myself at the time. I genuinely feel that my eating disorder thinking brain, whose sole purpose is to sweet talk me into skipping meals and or delay them or swapping them for something else is so smart, and it's bloody evolving. I sometimes feel like it's a virus or something that keeps evolving and adapts, and it finds its way through my mind. It finds its way through to contaminate my well-being. I think this is a point where I want to tell you guys a bit more about Human and like why I started Human with my co-founder Hugo. When we live our lives, we are often completely unaware that our certain behaviors, some of them and some symptoms, do start to manifest slowly. And like I said, from my experience, even myself having experienced restrictive eating and disordered eating habits for 12 years, how can I not still detect these early signs straight away? It's because in our minds, we keep telling ourselves otherwise. And it's so hard to pick these things out. So at Human, we want to use the technology that's out there and the tools that we already have, like our smartphones, to learn what behaviors and symptoms are associated with my relapse, with your relapse, with anybody's experiences of relapse, and pick out these behaviors and symptoms when they start to manifest. And so that in the future, what we really want to do is remind you at the right time before you get into that relapse, saying, hey, maybe this is something you need to look at. Hey, just take a moment. What do you think is happening? Are you really all right? Are you going towards the right direction? At Human, we're developing an app that can automatically track your mental health using your anonymized smartphone data. If you're excited about this, sign up to join the waiting list at www.human.uk. I was forced to pretty much recognize this by just hitting my mini relapse. You know, when you do hit a bottom, then there's no other option because you are struggling bad enough to think, what the hell is going on? And this mini relapse, by the way, I'm kind of using it as a non-clinical term. I'm using it as my own term. So I'm not talking about a clinical level relapse, about, for example, being re-diagnosed, but I am self-identifying my current state to be in a mini relapse just for my own awareness and for my own recovery plans. So why have I decided that I might be in a mini relapse pretty much for myself? What are the symptoms that I'm experiencing actually right now? So I am not out of this relapse at the moment. I have all of these symptoms present right now. But if you've been a regular here, you know that I'm super open about this. I know that we can be supportive for each other. I know you guys wouldn't judge me for being open about what I'm experiencing. And I believe the power in sharing what we're going through. I'm going to tell you what it's like. And actually, if you've been a regular here on our channel, you will have heard this from me a couple of times because it's very similar to what I experienced in the previous relapse. First, it's about thinking about food very frequently and almost all the time. Most identifiable one for me has been thinking about food constantly, and especially about what breakfast I'm going to have for a long time when I'm falling asleep. So in bed, I'll just be thinking about the food that I can eat tomorrow. I have this like longing and craving for food before bed. And also, secondly, I didn't feel satisfied, and I don't feel satisfied at the moment after eating my usual balanced meals. I want more. I'm mentally still hungry. I was craving stuff still. And thirdly, the types of food that I've been craving and I am craving right now are energy dense foods. You can see the chocolate wrapper here. That was my fourth chocolate this afternoon. I have been just wanting to eat chocolate and cookies. On the way back home, I bought these M&S cookies and I literally ate 5 of them on the way home, and this was after a massive meal. So just really craving these energy dense food throughout the day and almost doing like a very mini binge when there's alcohol involved, where my body can be honest and be like, man, you've been so hungry, like I'm gonna use this alcohol opportunity to get you to eat more. You know how I've been through a few of these cycles now of struggling with these symptoms, very intrusive thoughts about constant hunger and constantly thinking about food and then recovering and then trying to feel much better and then getting there and then happening again. So thankfully, this time I also kind of know the drill about what works for me. And I'll bring back my recovery mantra that I used before, which is to give myself unconditional freedom to eat whenever, whatever, wherever. But this time, I am also seeing the same barriers to recovery I had last time, which is the fear of weight gain. It feels incredibly stressful for me right now and guilty for me right now to keep feeding myself more food when I'm actually scared of gaining weight. So, this is when I suggest we're gonna do another exercise called Keep Asking Why. This is something I did before and mentioned in my podcast multiple times, and I think it will help us. Well, it helped me more logically identify the beliefs and the assumptions that were manifesting into some sort of fear for weight gain. So, in this exercise, I'm going to be answering the why questions to myself as honestly as possible, and the way it is right now. I am not giving myself unconditional freedom to eat at the moment. Why is that? I'm scared of gaining weight. Why am I scared of gaining weight? It's because I'm scared to look less attractive. Why do I think that gaining weight would mean that I would be less attractive? Because that's what I've been primed to believe. That's what the social media have passively communicated to me. That's what I've seen when I was a teen. People who are more attractive were really slim. They had less weight on them than I did. And that's why I believe it. Why are you scared to look less attractive then? Why does it matter? Because if I look less attractive, I might not be as worthy as a human being to others. Can you see how this exercise just reveals my hidden but detrimental beliefs during my recovery last time? I managed to fight these beliefs off and they have come back. And this first belief that is false and I need to get rid of, and I haven't been able to do that very well, is that gaining weight means I'll be less attractive. This fundamental flawed belief was formed from comments from close people, probably when I was younger, when I was a teen, looking at how social media land wants me to believe, how I self-interpreted the reason behind popular kids at school when I was young. Is this belief even really true? I find people attractive when they're confident about their existence and has incredible qualities as human beings. It makes me think, but what about the comments that I got from people when I was a teen? When people told me that I looked fat, I look awful, when I gained weight. Even that belief, we need to be able to challenge them and say, well, we were so young, we were so immature, and the comments do not deserve the importance that they do. But this first flawed belief is something that I really struggle with. And now the second belief that I really struggle with, that is also very flawed, is that if I look less attractive, I will be less worthy as a human being. That's ridiculous, right? I mean, some people might value people based on how slim they are. I'm not sure. Like, that surely must exist somewhere. But seriously, guys, do you want them as your friend? Because I don't. And if they don't matter to you, whether they're your friend or not, why do I spend so much energy trying to respond to what they believe, not what I believe? Because I believe that our true friends love us for who we are, and it doesn't matter. So these two detrimental beliefs have, I think, risen from different sources that I mentioned around social media, looking at certain behaviors when you're a teen, hearing certain comments, and also, though, the second belief around, if I look less attractive, I'm less worthy as a human. I've really reflected on this deeply, and I found this for me to be a very deep rooted issue around self-worth, self-perception, and self-esteem that has probably stemmed from my childhood upbringing. I always have this sense of need to feel like a little bit more smart, slightly more attractive, just a little bit more successful, a bit nicer, just a bit more of a people pleaser, in order to feel like I'm worthy of existing. Upon reflection, I think these beliefs are so powerful that it was pretty much easy enough for all of these symptoms to come back, because these fundamental core beliefs are the soil for disordered eating symptoms to grow for me. And it's so important that I understand where the core, faulty beliefs lie. So I'm going to be working on these two core beliefs again, like I did in my previous recovery, whilst giving myself unconditional freedom to eat, which is to me, like a physiological recovery mechanism to remind my body that there is no scarcity of food. There is no restrictive behavior around you. You can relax. You can stop thinking about food. And I can reassure you by giving you food whenever you think about it, whatever you want, and all the time. And that is my way of physiologically recovering from mental hunger, and it's worked so well before, so I'm going to do that again. If you identify with some of these beliefs, I really want you to reflect on them and think, am I happy with these beliefs and how they are affecting me right now? Or do I want to put in some effort to try and dissolve these beliefs? I really believe that we can stay in full recovery if we do it well, if we put in the right maintenance, although it's always sort of up and down. And I am completely accepting how I am on a little bit of a down pit at the moment. But I do believe that recovery is always possible. And I believe that my false assumptions and these strong beliefs that don't have any ground deserve no ground. My take to life is we only live once. We know we deserve everything. We know we deserve to be here, but you just need to believe that. And I believe it's possible, so I just need to work on it. I have reached out to get professional help. You guys will be so proud of me. I actually did this. The last time I got professional help was when I was a teen. I saw psychiatrists, I saw psychologists. I think it was psychotherapists, actually. And this time I have already got some counseling sessions booked. I'm going to reach out to some psychotherapists. I'm going to see what's out there to really tackle some of these childhood formed beliefs properly this time. And I am willing to invest a lot of time and resources to make this happen, because I have learned over the time that it's so worth it, and it's fundamental to stay in recovery for me. So here is a small reminder for you today. You are perfect as you are. The world is incredibly lucky to have you, and we are so blessed to have you. You are so worthy just as you are in your existence. Attraction is not about weight. It's about how you glow from the inside, and that's what makes people attractive. In the next episode, I hope to delve slightly deeper into my recent reflections about self-worth issues and how that has potentially been bleeding into my other life beyond my eating habits, especially about work. But today, thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for all of your incredible comments and support. I really hope today's story gave you some interesting food for thought to mull over, and I really hope that this has encouraged you to get professional help if you were thinking about it, or whether you were sort of contemplating whether it's worth it, because I spent a long time doing that as well. And I hope also that this encouraged some of you to feel like you are not alone. I am here for you guys. I am here, and I am here to remind you that it's not just you. I hope a lot of my experiences can be resonated by a lot of people around the world, because I know it's more common than we think. And I hope that this has reminded you of how worthy you are, just as you are. Take care and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.